Thanks, guys. Okay, welcome to Metrics for Agile Teams. So who of you is an Agile developer? Okay, that's almost everybody. Who is a Scrum Master? Okay, some of you. Who is a product owner? Who is something different, very agile-y, but none of those before? Okay, nice. Okay, good. Okay, so I know what I have to talk about right now. So I'll let you know a little bit about myself so you understand where I'm coming from and why I chose those topics the way I did. So my name is Richard. I work for XDEV Software here in Germany, and my passion is clean code and also everything that's agile. So what we do as a company is we provide Rapid Clips, which is a rapid application development environment for web apps and everything that is driven with databases. You can go and check it out. It's free. You can download it and give it a try, and it's basically a set of really nice Eclipse plugins. And also we do MicroStream, which is the only native data store for Java. So no database anymore. If you like to do a web service and don't want to have a database and just store your objects really nice with just one line of code, give it a try. It's also free and you can download it, and also there will be a talk from my colleague Marcus later, and he will show how to do microservice with this technology really fast. Okay, so you know where I'm coming from. Let's dive into this. We're going to talk about metrics for agile teams, and we will cover a little bit background to that. We will find out why do we need metrics, and then we will go what questions will be asked from teams. And then we will see where we can get data for our metrics. And then we will start and look at a lot of metrics that helped us in our process and make our agile process better. So why do we need metrics for agile teams? We first started out in a really clear space. It was nice wood and we had birds singing. And it was really great and everybody was fine and we had those nice waterfalls. And something seemed to be wrong. Then there came some guys and they told a lot of stuff about self-organizing teams and stuff like that. And this was the Agile Manifesto. And later on there was the Scrum Guide that told us, you should decide yourself how your process is managed and what you do with your process. And all of a sudden, we find us in this situation. Closely look at the guy in the front. Okay? So this is Scrum now. So you gotta do a lot more work. And this graphic illustrates it very well. So on the left side, you have the way you did it before. So you just had to develop your software, and that was basically it. You had to ship it, okay, but we saw earlier this is cloud and all that stuff, so you don't care anymore. But now you have a lot more to do. You gotta do the right part also, which has to do with a lot of decisions. So you gotta find out stuff, you gotta find data, and then you gotta make a lot of decisions, and this is really hard. And this is something people don't realize when they start with something agile. So you're not a developer anymore, you're in a self-organizing team and you have to do a lot of more work. So, but how would you make those decisions? And our developer approach to it was, hey, make it measurable. So we did that. So we tried to understand our own work better by measuring it. And then we saw, oh, there's potential for improvement, and we had a look at that. We took some action and really messed things up. And then the fourth step is we took a look again at the changes we made and measured again. And the fourth step is the one that is always hard, because you already did stuff and that should be fine, right? But that's the hard part. You gotta look at it and see if it really had the outcome you were looking for. And this is the part where metrics come in, and I found this very nice definition of metrics, which yields a lot of nice words. It has diagnostic and it has motivational character and all this stuff. And who doesn't love the green thing when you do the unit test and all goes green, or your build is green? That is a nice feeling, right? So you got to have that for everything, because you always get those little drugs in your brain that says, oh, you're done well. So let's have this, because we don't have not enough fun. Okay, and it also says you have to do it in a reoccurring way. But when you only measure once, it's not a metric. It's a metric if you measure constantly. And we all know DevOps and automate everything, so we're gonna automate this. So what can metrics do? They can generate insight and let you identify potential for improvement. And also there's the bad thing in the middle, you know, control function. So be careful who you show this to, because somebody might try to control you with this, but don't let them. And also there's limitations, whereas like possibilities, there's also limitations. Metrics are not the reality. Don't focus too much on this. The numbers, all lies. You know this. You forged enough statistics, so you know it's all a lie. But be pragmatic about it. Use metrics to talk about it, and always use context, because a metric only works in a certain context. Don't take a metric and put it out there and say this is the golden rule and everything will work with that number. That's not true. And don't tell anybody to do this. Okay. And then we got to figure out if this is really something that works with all the guys that come from a very agile background. So is this really something we can do? Because we have a statement that says individuals and interactions over processes and tools, and this seems to be a tool, right? So I see it that way. You should use it not for the numbers, but to start discussions, and then it's again interactions. So this could fit. And also you gotta have collaboration, especially customer collaboration, over contract negotiation. And with this, you get to a point where you can talk about things and don't have to have like the plan all front up. And then, responding to change, of course, Bob just told us about changes in the developer life and in the landscape of developers. And think of it as a pilot piloting a plane. So this is an easy task, right? There's autopilot and stuff like that. If you're not land or just start, but they don't have to do nothing. That's okay, because the world does not change anymore. But if mountains would move, like it is in our profession, you should have a look at your surroundings and your instruments once in a while to see if there is a mountain today where there was none yesterday. So this seems to fit also. So let's dive into the questions. What agile teams want to know. So there's a lot of things they ask when we come to customers or in our own teams, and there's some kind of similar questions all the time. So here are some for you. How many story points can we do in an iteration? That's an interesting question. So how homogeneous is our team? How much time is invested in certain tasks or task types? Who worked on which task types? How about what things should we speak face to face, or where is issue tracker sufficient? And then again, why did they release the second and third Matrix movie? So some of those questions are easy to answer, because this one is usually what is velocity is used for, and that one nobody knows. So let's focus on those in the middle. But before we can do that, we got to find out where is the data coming from. So, of course, there's books, but they won't help you here, because you need the data for your own team. So the first thing you would do is do a manual capture. And this works like this. You hand out like paper and pens and let everybody write down what they do all the time. So this is a very efficient approach, don't you think? Okay, laughing. It's not only not efficient, but people will try to manipulate it deliberately or unintentionally. So even if all the guys are fine and they will do it, people are really bad at capturing what they do and how long it took to do it. So don't let them do that. Also, developer resources are kind of expensive today, so this seems not to be a good fit. The other option is automated capture, and this is a really nice time for that, because you can put surveillance cameras all over the place and then use image recognition to see what everybody is doing. So this is a very good cloud approach, and Oracle loves that because this uses a lot of cloud resources. But that seems to be a deal breaker for most developers today, so you might want to not do that. So instead of that, you can come up with data that is already there, because there is data. And I want you to go into yourself and think where you leave data traces. And this is something where developers usually are very good, because they always care about data. So it might not be Facebook, but when you're working, you get a lot of tools that collect data constantly, because you interact with those tools and they store a lot of information what you're doing. So for example, Jira is a bug tracker, or GitHub, when you commit, or when you do continuous integration, you always generate data, and this is something you can harvest. And most of these tools, they offer REST interfaces or something else where you can collect all this data. And I don't want to tell you how to build a REST client, this other talks are for, but I guess you know how to collect data from a REST interface, right? Okay. So, and then the only thing you have to do is you collect all your data in a central place. Maybe Oracle database, maybe a MicroStream instance. And then you have all the data and you can query it. But before you query it, you gotta do a little bit of integration, because the data comes in different shapes and sizes, and I would encourage you to integrate it over time, because you almost always have a timestamp, so you can build a nice timeline, and over user credentials, so you always have a username or email address, and then you can put all the things together. And to give more context, you could add like issue numbers or something like that, and then you would have something like this that you can query and can build nice metrics from it. So a little bit caution here. Please think about data protection laws when you do this. So before you start doing any of this, please talk to your data protection person in your organization. This should help. And I cannot give you legal advice on this, but please talk to those guys first. Okay. So we have done all the theory that is behind that, and we will look at metrics and see how they helped us. And so the first one is the truck factor, which is also known as the bus factor, but I had nicer picture for trucks. So what does this mean? In the 70s, James Coplin came up with the term bus factor or truck factor, and he basically said, so how many people you would have to run over with a bus from your project until you have a problem. Okay, we don't want to kill anybody, but you have to do it this drastically, because if you say the person would go to a holiday or a very long vacation, something like that, or he would spend a year abroad, all the people say always, yeah, and then I will call him and he will help me. No, he has to die, okay? You can't reach him anymore. So think about that. And usually when you ask people, what is the truck factor in your team? And let's say you have a team of 7 people, and they will tell you a random number, because this is just random. Nobody can say this for real. So we will take a look how to find out what is the real truck factor for your team. And we called this team homogeneity, because it shows you how homogeneous your team is. So heterogeneous means your team is composed of different characters that can do different stuff. Homogeneous means your team can do the same all along, and you can exchange people. So, and you can do this for a component or for the whole project. Usually you do it for a component, because most of the time this does not work for a whole project. And then you can find out if your team is one team or it is several teams. So for example, when you see that most of your guys, let's say 5 of them, only work front end and the others work back end. So it's not really exchangeable, because if all the back end guys die, you can't do the back end anymore. So that's something you can think about. And you also can think about this in programming topics. If you say I have a payment module, and I have a guy that can do the payment module, and he can do front end and he can do back end, but he can do nothing for like the shopping cart or something like that, then this guy is also bus factor 1, because if he dies, nobody can do payment anymore. That would be bad most of the times. And also you can find out, oh, this was the same, who worked on which tasks. And your data sources will be your project tracking tool and your version control system. And when you look at Git, for example, you can get a lot of data from Git. And there's a nice tool called JQ Assistant from Dirk Mahler. I have it in the back of the slides, so you can take a photo. And this will give you access to this data stored in Git, because in Git there is a graph of all changes. And you can follow from a user to a commit, and then you can say, okay, there's a change set in this commit, and you can look at the files. And in Java, it's very easy, because most of the time, one file is one class. And even if there are more classes in one file, it does not matter most of the time for this case, because those classes are related very closely. So this should not hurt. And then you can map this to a component. Most of the time, when you have a nice package structure, then you can say, okay, I can see that this commit worked only on this certain component. And then you can build something like this. So this is a graph showing over time a project or a component. And let's say this is a payment component. And we have 3 team members working on it. It's Alice, Bob, and Claire. And at first, only Alice is working at this. So it's all blue. And she's alone, and nobody can help her, because nobody knows anything about this payment component. And then later on, we realize that, and we say that this is bad, because it's not only bad if she dies, we don't hope for that, but it's also bad when she wants to go on vacation, because people will call her on vacation, and you don't want that. So we bring in Bob and Claire, and they will help her a little bit, and they will do some commits on those components. And then it will change, and you see the yellow line. As more work they do, the yellow line moves. And it moves from fully heterogeneous, so very specialized team on this component, to fully homogeneous, which means even distribution of work on that component. So the most right thing, the most right column is nice, but it's most of the time too expensive to maintain, because you would have to keep all those developers in the loop all the time. So it's very expensive. This is something you want to have on a space shuttle, but you might want to not have this for like search engine stuff on your web shop or something like that. So the truth should be somewhere in the middle. And the nice thing is, because this is could not be manipulated, it will always tell kind of the truth, as much as truth as numbers can tell. But you can see if there is a progress. If you say we want to bring on a new team member to work on this component, so you can really see if there is some progress on that. So this is the first metric. Are any questions about this metric in particular? Okay, we'll have time in the end to do some questions also. So we will look at the second metric. So totally different theme. It's called team time commitment, one of my favorites. And the answer question is, how much time is spent by the development team? Which seems to be a very easy question, but we will see how this helps us. Because it helps us to see where there is disturbance for the team, and also we can plan our sprints better, and we get a better work-life balance. Let's see how this works. Oh, close before that, you might think this is velocity, right? But there seems to be a big difference between velocity and the power equation, and team time commitment is basically the power equation. So velocity is only tasks completed in the sprint time frame. So this does not account for tasks that we spend a lot of time in and did not complete. Or we complete this at the beginning of the sprint and a lot of data is lost on that. Where there is the power equation that considers all the time we put into this and all the work we put into this in the sprint time frame. So let's do some visualization on that. This is a burn down chart, and you see this is like the perfect thing, because the gray line says what should be done, and then we have the orange line that is the burn down. And of course we finish this sprint right on the point. Yes? Okay? Perfect. So this might look like this might not be faked, but let's look behind what happened in the back. The blue line is actual time invested by the team. And the gray line says like what you should have invested on each day of your total amount of hours. And as you can see, on day 2, the blue line drops. So this means this was bad weather and everybody was in the office and spending late nights and doing more work than was actually needed at this time in this point of time. That's good. Then we see on day 4, the weather was really good and people did not do so much work on that project. And then usually you see at the end of the sprint, people put in a lot of more work to accomplish the sprint goal. And that's good. Yay, we did it. But it's bad also because you spend late nights in the office and you come up with more time invested than you would like have to. And then you see, okay, the orange line looks nice, but when you take the blue line into account, it looks not so nice anymore because we burned some of our resources, like burnout. And you can do this, of course, for 1 or 2 sprints, but you should not do this like for 2 years or something like that. People will literally die from that. So you might want to have a look at that. So that's team time commitment. Let's take a look at the next one. It's called sprint profile. And it somehow goes nice with team time commitment because it tells you where did we spend how much time or on which tasks did we spend it. And we have 4 categories. We do features, bugs, hotfixes, and meetings. And everybody hates meetings, so you gotta have that. So what is the value? The value again is you can compare sprints. This is something really nice. We will look at this in the type task dimension. And then you can do forecasts or better planning on how much time you should buffer for with bugs. I know there are a lot of people that don't plan for bugs in their sprint iterations, but if you do, you can look ahead a little bit. And this all comes from your project tracking tool, and when you put it into visualization, it looks like this. So let's go over this. We have 2 sprints. The blue line is the first sprint, and the second sprint is the orange line. And as we can see in the first sprint, we did a lot of work on features, so the line spikes here. And we had some bugs, but not too much. We spent some time in meetings, so it seems not to be any hotfixes here. And usually this is something you can often see. The sprint after that, we have a lot of bugs because we shipped too early, did maybe too less testing, and we pay for that. And when you add more sprints, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you will get a clearer picture of what is really happening and how your sprints evolve. And so you can make decisions based on that. So this is it for sprint profile. The next one is a very human thing. It's comment ping pong. And I guess most of the guys know about it. The question is, about which task should we talk face-to-face? Because face-to-face is the most efficient thing to do, but usually we don't do it. And we have the value that it shows where the team needs to communicate directly. And this may be an indicator for a lot of problems in your team. So if you're a Scrum Master and you see a lot of those, you should look into this because real problems hide behind comment ping pong. And also, it allows you to take countermeasures in a timely manner because once such a component ping pong is gone for 4 hours or 2 days, it does not matter anymore. You can't do nothing about it. And you only need your project tracking tool for that. And to underline this, the Scrum Guide and the Agile Manifesto both state that you should communicate face-to-face, or maybe by phone or Skype or something like that, if it's not possible to do it face-to-face. So how we do it? We run a time window and we track all the comments on a certain issue. And if there is, for example, in a time window of an hour, there will be too much comments, then an alert is triggered and those people get a notification. Because this usually means they try to solve something over issue comments rather than talking to each other. And I guess everybody knows the situation where you come to an issue that has like 2 guys fighting about something and they have produced over 40 comments or something, and Jira does the thing where it wraps up all these comments and you have to click on it to see it all. This is the point where I lose all my motivation for this issue. And if you ask developers, everybody hates those. Everybody loves those where there is 2 comments on them and they are fine. When there is like the thing where Jira collapses all this, you don't like that anymore. So this is a great thing, and yes, people get an alert and they It says, please talk to this face-to-face. And this helps because they can say, the metric said I should talk to you. And it's an easy point to enter the conversation. So this is component ping pong. So let's go for pull request size, which is a very, very easy metric. As you can imagine, it tells you how much code changes are in a pull request, because it measures the size. And we do it very easily. We measure files on a pull request. Because when I get a pull request that has over 200 files, I can tell you how I should review that, because this is not in my brain capacity to do this. I cannot. And so, yeah, it can improve the quality of pull requests, because when I get a pull request that has like 5 files, I will be able to do that and do it like with some meaningful way and give constructive feedback. When I'm at the 5th file from 200, I'm so annoyed, I think about not writing any comments anymore. So this could help a lot. And also this could help a lot to improve lead time. Lead time is the time from starting to work on something until you can ship it. And imagine the following. You do something and you give it to a colleague to review it. So you create a pull request. And your colleague, this is a 200 files thing. Your colleague has no time to do it because he wants to do it right, and he will take 4 hours to do it, and he will set on his calendar, he will set an event, an appointment, and say, okay, I will do this there. And this is 3 weeks from now. So this seems kind of counterproductive to have a review 3 weeks from now, because I don't know about you, but when I code something, you're lucky if I know the next day what I did yesterday. So it would really help if I could get feedback really close to the time when I'm finished with that. So this also helps. And of course, it helps because when you have the review 3 weeks after you're finished with your work, you have 3 weeks work laying around dormant and getting shipped only after 3 weeks, and you could have shipped it maybe after 2 days or something like that. So very easy metric, just see how big are your pull requests. Super easy to do. Okay. Then we'll have a look at stuck work. So this is kind of similar, but a little bit different though. It answers which unshipped tasks were worked on, but then abandoned in the process. And maybe they are abandoned for a good reason, but sometimes you did some work and a task gets abandoned and nobody notices it. And only later on somebody comes around and says, where is this task? And this is not only bad because you have to admit you lost something, it's also bad because you tie up capital. So you invest work, but you cannot ship it, and that's what it's all about, right? You want to ship fast. And so this helps you to identify that, and it also helps to reduce muda, which is a construct from Kanban, which describes wastefulness, because essentially you waste work. And you can get those from your version control system, project tracking tool, and continuous integration. And here are for the mathematicians some formula to do it. So we basically say we measure the time for a task when we started to work on it, and we measure the days till now. And we add the days from the last time somebody worked on this to now. We measure also this duration. And then we multiply it with the work that was invested into this task. So if you only spend 2 hours doing something and you abandon it, it's not that big of a problem. But if your team spent like 3 weeks doing something and they abandon it, this seems to be a big problem, because if it gets not shipped, it's really wasted and you lost a lot of time. And so if you calculate this, you come up with some bars. And with those bars, you can see maybe that task on the top is something we should look into. And maybe it's not wanted anymore, then you can kill it, and you can look at the second one. But then you can identify where you can put your manpower to. Okay, that's about it for stuck work. This is the summary. The data is already there, so you gotta just use it. Talk to your data protection person before that. Then have a look. It's really worthwhile because you might learn a lot about yourself and your team. And this is a really good process because sometimes you think you're really good at something and you're not. And better the other way around. You think you're maybe not so good at something, but the numbers show you're actually quite good at this. So this could also help. Think about the green things when you do your unit test. Yeah, green. And then also value the discussion about metrics. Value not the numbers. It's the discussion and it's talking to people. And most of the time you don't need the numbers so much. You just need like a little bit of trend and you gotta talk to people about why the trend is the way it is. And this brings all the value to that. So talk to people. And this is also a good discussion starter. Maybe sometime you have a feeling that something is off, but you can't really get a grip of it. So this might help you to tie it together and say, okay, let's have a look at this. And with this, I'd like to close and give you the Trekkie greeting. Yeah, inspect and adapt. Do it all the time. And we have some time left for questions now, if you like. And also here some nice books and some links where you can get more information. Thank you, guys. Yeah. I will repeat the question.
Very insightful presentation. Thank you for that. You've talked in the beginning about the metrics and how to adapt, or how often should you adapt. Can you give us more insights about your team or in your company? How often do you adjust those metrics? And when do you do it? Do you do it actually in the end of every sprint? Is it more like a retrospective topic or more of a separate meeting, ad hoc or such?
Yeah, thank you. So there's two different things. Usually we do not adjust the metrics themselves, but we look at the numbers they produce, and sometimes we adjust the metrics. So for us, the rule is we adjust the metrics only in retrospectives. But we look at the numbers all the time because we try to automate them in a way that we can look at them in a near real-time approach. So no seconds real time, but something like you get the numbers that are like current in a state of minutes. And this helps. But also be cautious about that. If you look at them too much and think there will be changes, you might overdo it. So you like kind of find the middle of it. Okay. Here you go.
How do you start it all? If you wanted to sort of start with the more agile approach, what's the first step you should take?
Oh, that's a good question. I would think talk to your colleagues. And I would not start if I don't have any problems. But usually there are some problems that have emerged over the time, and you see that something is off with your process, what you do, if it's not agile. And I would also say that agile is not right for everybody. So there's guys that tell you everybody must do it agile. It could be a very good way to do it differently. And sometimes our metrics show with customers that they should not do agile, because if you are the only ones in the organization that will do it and nobody is to support it, you might fight a losing war, and you might be better off to do it differently. So if you don't have pain, don't change anything.
Does your team estimate the tasks, and how do you estimate the tasks? Because every team is different. Everywhere I've been, they say we do not estimate tasks. Some teams say let's estimating on task level. So I would like to hear from you. What's your experience?
Okay, so you have to adapt all those metrics to your teams, of course. So if your team works in a slightly different way, you have to adapt this. And this is something that the team has to come up with. Because I started with saying you have to do a lot more work if you do Agile. And that's basically it. And we just like to had an engineering approach on doing that, because we are as developers, often not the guys that do like all the meetings and be fluffy with each other and talk a lot. So we try to do this from an engineering perspective. And so we adapt those to the teams, and we don't have those metrics in every team. So we only call in for a metric that we have in our bank when we need it. So if there is no pain and you think everything is great, don't do nothing. So if everybody is happy, all the stakeholders are happy, don't change anything. But usually there is some driver of change where you say, I have to be faster, or I'm not satisfied with the process, or we lose money, or I can't go on vacation, for example. This could be drivers to install those metrics. Does that answer your question? Okay, so. Okay, task estimation. Okay, this is a very difficult topic because everybody does it a little bit differently. We had a lot of great experience with doing it with story points, but for some customers this does not work because they always have like those hidden factor that they apply to the story points to get out man hours or person hours or something like that. So you got to find out. I would say for me, the general rule would be if you are more in a product development environment, story points usually is better. And if you are more in a project doing a business, agile business environment, for me it seems that really hours or days or something like that, so like a real-time unit is the better fit. But this could depend on your project also. Okay. Now you seem satisfied. Okay. Are there any other questions? Oh, okay, over there.
Thanks. Did you ever draw wrong conclusions from those numbers? That would be first question. Second question, do you ever feel driven by numbers where you shouldn't?
Yeah, good question. So, of course, we drew a lot of wrong things from those numbers, and that's the part where I said you got to talk about it. Because even if those numbers are wrong, that's great, because you got something to start to discuss about. And so that's why I said the numbers are always wrong. So talk about it. And what was the second one? Driven, okay, yeah. Yes, sometimes. And if this is the case, you should really look into this, because they should not drive you. It should only drive you if there is really value for it. So, for example, I'm a really big fan of the thing with Alice, Bob, and Claire, where you cannot go on vacation. So this is something that has value for me, and I'm okay to be a little bit driven by that, because I really want other guys in the team to come into my domain and have at least so much knowledge about it so that I can go on vacation and clear my mind and not get called like every second day on my vacation. So this is a big thing for me. So that will be one where I will be okay to be driven by that. I would not be so okay with like pull request size or something like that. So be pragmatic about all those metrics. So we still have time if there is some questions left. Okay, seems not to be the case. I will be around, so if you have any questions that we should talk about later, or there comes something to mind, please go ahead, come to my Twitter or ask me any questions. And find me here and chat with me. I will be here all day. Thank you, guys.